So Jay, before we start the discussion on the CT Barber Expo, which is actually a massive thing in your life right now, I just want to talk about your life before you actually started barbering. In fact, it was a very troubled life in the sense that you was incarcerated. Tell me about life before you started barbering, coming out of incarceration and starting your new life in barbering.
You know, I did live a troubled past. You know, I grew up in a rough area, and you know, in the early '90s, the gangs were really prevalent in the Connecticut area, New York, the tri-state area, and you know, to be honest with you, I got down just to be cool. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to do what others in the neighborhood were doing. You know, I come from a family where my parents did their best to make ends meet, but I wanted the designer things, the Nikes, the Jordans and things, so I went about, you know, I did the wrong things in order to acquire those things, and at a young age, I was always the black sheep, man. I was always getting accused of something, and it's kind of funny because when I would get incarcerated, my family wasn't the type of parents to send me money or finances, so I had to find ways to make ends meet. Because even though you're incarcerated, you still need to buy cosmetics and foods and snacks or whatever it may be. And I started like drawing, like handkerchiefs and stuff like that. And I really wasn't that good at drawing. So I got the bright idea, because I really looked up to a barber in my neighborhood, to start cutting hair. Because I was always like really good with the clippers, like doing my own little mustache and my own edge up, because my parents didn't take me to get haircuts a lot. And that was how I made funds while I was incarcerated.
Okay. And tell me how you actually became licensed. Talk me through the journey, the struggles, how you got that.
Well, so here's the thing. You know, when I was incarcerated, I really didn't have hope, you know. And I would get out and I'd work these dead-end jobs, you know, factory work, restaurants, cleaning jobs. And I would work these jobs and they wouldn't make, I wasn't making good enough money, and I was used to making fast money due to my other lifestyle. So I did the proper programs while I was incarcerated, and I had like an epiphany one day. I was sitting in my cell, and they have these lockers where you put your food in these lockers and all your cosmetics, right? And I had all these food, like soups and honey buns, and I was hoarding stuff. I had like $300-400 worth of food, which in prison's like $2,000 in the streets, you know? And all these quote unquote drug lords and stuff were coming borrowing stuff from me because they didn't have any food left the next day. And like a light bulb went off, like, why the hell do you try breaking the law? Why are you involved in drug trade? Why are you involved in that knucklehead mentality when you could be making all this money cutting hair? So I went down to the education department the next morning and I talked to this lady. And she said, when you get out, because I was about 6 months upon my release, 4 to 6 months, depending on my behavior, which was 6 months because I didn't behave. But she said, when you go, you call this phone number, and due to you being a felon and because of the programs that you have done, we can get you a Pell Grant to go to cosmetology school to become a barber. Because at that point in the state of Connecticut, there's no such thing as barbering. You're a cosmetologist that cut men's hair. And I ended up going through the process, and I got a Pell Grant to go to school to do a 1,500-hour cosmetology program to be a barber. And I almost dropped out like 4 times.
Okay. So you've got the shop, which is called Major League Barbershop. Tell me a little bit about this shop and how it differs from any shop in your area. I kind of feel like I'm going to get a Danny or Amorim answer here.
Yeah. You know, to be honest with you, I believe the culture. Okay, so leading into my barbershop, you know, like we're fast forwarding way ahead. When I did graduate cosmetology school, I was renting chairs in certain neighborhoods. I was renting chairs at barbershops and quote unquote in the hood, and you know, in the ghetto. But I acquired like a high-end clientele that I would somehow pull them into this bad neighborhood. And I ended up getting a gentleman in my chair, which most people would look at like maybe a mobster or something. You know, old school Italian guy who owned a lot of property. And he said, listen, we got to take you out of this neighborhood. And I'm opening a mall, a mini mall, a strip mall in West Haven, Connecticut. He said, go there and you choose which spot you want. So I went there. This was about 10 and a half, 11 years ago. I went there and it was like a dirt parking lot with like some stone. And he said, pick which spot you want. I called him and I said, what do you mean which spot do I want? He says, mark the dirt. So I marked the dirt and it ended up being like a 1,200 square foot barber shop. And that's big, you know, and especially in Connecticut. So 1,200 square feet, I said, how am I gonna grow into this business? So I opened my first shop about a year after graduating, cosmetology school. And I hired some barbers. To start off with 4 of us. 4 chairs went to 8 chairs, 8 chairs went to 10 chairs, 10 chairs went to 12 chairs. The difference between my shop in my particular area is that a lot of barbers just slap a barber shop together. They put up a couple pieces of wood and a mirror and say, hey, that's your station and I want this much money a week on rent. I was the one that I bought all these big LED, or they were plasma TVs back then. They were like 400 pounds and they were about, a couple $1,000s. Now you can get a beautiful LED TV for $500 in the US. Back then it was like $2,500 for a 40-inch flat screen, and they were still about this wide. But I hung up flat screens everywhere. I had the waiting area was a baseball dugout because we went with the sports theme. And I just wanted my place to be a family-friendly environment where women could go and not get gawked at. I have a full-time cleaning person at both my facilities, so the bathrooms are immaculate because that's the first thing a woman's going to judge your barbershop on. Do they have toilet paper? Is it clean? Is there hair everywhere in the bathroom? So I strive myself on sanitation, on the looks of the aesthetics of the barbershop itself. I'm always remodeling it. I'm always buying new chairs. I'm always upgrading my facility. I love nostalgia and I love old school barbershops, but I also want everything to be clean. It's part of my little OCD that I have. But I think the difference between my shop is the cleanliness, as well as I'm very picky on who I hire. If I can't shape and mold them into be an entrepreneur, I don't want them at my shop. I want everyone with an entrepreneur dream. A majority of my guys leave and open their own business. I get offended when they go leave and work at another shop. I'll help them open another business, even if they're going to be my competition, because I want everyone to move out of my shop, learn from what I have done.
Okay, so it's all, in your mind, it's all about making a contribution, helping the underdog who you were at one point in your life.
Yeah, I mean, even to this day, right now, this just came about that I am working with previously incarcerated people. I do youth outreach work. I go into prisons and speak to juveniles. And right now I'm working with people that were incarcerated that might be tattooed up like me, that can't find a job, a good paying job. So what's happening in the state of Connecticut is the incarceration rate is down for men. And within the next 2 years, our governor wants 10,000 inmates to be released to the prison. Right now there's 21,000 inmates. They want to be under 10,000. Now there's going to be 10,000 men that are going to come out without jobs. All the manufacturing jobs that were in Connecticut are overseas now. So where are these guys going to go? They're going to go back into our community. The barber shop is a staple in our community, and I want these guys to hopefully come to my academy, and maybe I could find them job placement throughout, because everywhere you go you see help wanted signs in Connecticut and the surrounding states for licensed professionals. It's really hard to find a licensed barber.
Okay, so I'm going to come on to the academy shortly, but first I want to talk about the CT Barber Expo. I had the privilege of being there last month, and I have to say it was, one of the most amazing experiences I've been subject to in barbering. I mean, the sheer scale of it, the professionalism. I mean, it was off the rail, basically. Tell me how this started, because it did start from humble beings, and there was a justified reason for it as well. I believe there was some beef in the neighborhood with barbers, and you wanted to create something structured in order to deal with the beef, so to speak. Tell me in your own words where it came from.
So I've participated in barber battles in cosmetology and barber schools in New England, and the guys are really come out. To me, the difference between a cosmetologist and a barber where I'm from is a cosmetologist would get their license and they'll do continued education, and they'll take classes on learn how to do the next color or the next eyebrows or whatever it may be. Barbers get their license, get a tattoo of a pair of clippers on their neck or a razor, and they think they know everything. In order for me to spread awareness that we weren't charging enough for our haircuts, we weren't acting like professionals, we weren't treating our clients with the proper customer care in the urban barbershop in my area, in order to spread awareness, I had to come up with some type of excuse. And that is to come with a competition. The barbers, as you know, are real competitive people. I was doing nightclub promotions at the time, and I was planning on opening a barber academy, and I didn't want the barber academy to have the stigma of me being a nightclub promoter, just in case something happened on my watch, whether it was violence, someone gets a DW, or drunk driving, or whatever it may be. I didn't want to promote the alcohol use. So I did a barber battle. I let everyone compete for free. And it was at Sin City nightclub in Waterbury about 7 years ago. And I did not think that many people would show up to this event, nor did I think it would have turned into what it is today. It was just a nightclub event, and did I mess up? Sorry about that. Sorry. It was just a nightclub event. I started reaching out. I reached out to Lee from Barbershop Connect. He said, nobody's going to go to Connecticut. I said, I'll pay you to market my event. He says, listen, don't even waste your time. I reached out to all these companies. They're like, this is your first, a barber battle? Like, what's that? No, we'll be okay. One person, who was Ivan Zoot, who's a big predecessor, a big mentor to me. He's one of the best educators I know as far as verbiage, knowledge, clipper knowledge, tool knowledge, whatever it may be, business knowledge. He knows the barbering ins and outs. So I reached out to Ivan Zoot, and at that point, Ivan Zoot was the lead educator for Andis Clipper Company. He was doing a lot for that company, and I said, Ivan, will you be able to give me some money so I could rent this facility? And I said, I don't know if I can get you any money. This is your first event, but I can get you clippers for the prize bags, which was like astonishing to give out a free pair of clippers, you know. So I went and ordered my own trophies, and we had about 40 competitors, 20 to 40 competitors. Yeah, well, 30, in the mid 30 competitors. I really don't recall, but it was a great turnout. It was in a dark, sweaty nightclub. I ended up getting Curtis Smith and Has, the barber from Team Exotics, to be one of the judges, so he could bring in someone from New York. And we had 2 vendors, not including me, so there's 3. I had like these T-shirts for sale that said, "Your barber's favorite barber." And there was a couple shops, man. What happened was, I opened a new shop, and I hired some guys that used to work at another shop. They were jealous that they were working here, and they were talking junk about us, and I'm not gonna lie, we were talking junk about them. You know, I'm better than him, and he's better than me. Oh, his designs are whack. Oh, he pushed the hairline back. And what we did was, we said, all right, put your money where your mouth is. Matter of fact, no, you could compete for free. So we gave them that platform, and it was crazy the support I got, and it just grew like wildfire.
Okay. So before you was having problems with the police, whilst you was doing these shows where they were growing so rapidly, you started having problems with the fire department. Tell me about the fire department, the problems you was having, and how they've actually helped you to get to the size that you are now.
Okay, so, you know, I like to think of myself as an entrepreneur and a risk taker, but I take calculated risk. And depending on the support of the public is hard, especially when I first started this. MySpace was big and Facebook just came out. So it was really hard to market on a social media platform. So we had to do a lot of old school marketing. My first show, I was in a facility that held 1,100 people, fire marshal code. When you throw some vendors in there, maybe 900. My first show did a little over 600 people, which was astonishing for my first Barber Expo. I was so excited, I did one 6 months later. So I did a spring show, then I did a summer show. When I did the summer show, which I believe was mid-August, the line was wrapping all the way around the block. I mean, the line was huge. It looked like people were waiting to get in the circus or something, or like a carnival, or like Disney. And my second show did over 1,100, about 1,200 people. So someone must have reported, because where the nightclub is in an industrial area where there's not a lot of people. That's the only attraction, is them in a diner. And someone must have reported to the fire marshal that, like, we don't know what's going on. The police came, fire marshal came about 3 hours into my show, and it was just, the walls and the ceiling was sweating. I felt so bad for my competitors. They were just wiping the sweat off their clients. But something happened at that show. I was at the third award ceremony. We were giving out the speed fade battle, and this kid won second place. And he came, and his grandfather and his mother and his aunt and his grandfather came with a gimp. And his grandfather said he flew all the way from Puerto Rico to see him compete. And the kid cried and was like, thank you, I never won anything in my life. And he just won a trophy like this big and a couple pairs of clippers. By then I had like 5 vendors. So from that point on, I said, I got to get out the nightclubs, and I have to give back to the industry that's been like giving to me. And you know, to see the pride and joy that people, like, I feel bad for the guy that loses, but at the end of the day, you know, if there's 100 competitors and there's 7 categories, there's only going to be 21 winners out of 100 competitors. But usually there's 300 competitors. So, you know, when I see the pride that people were taking into actually competing themselves, it made me want to take it up another level, take it up another notch, and really put on like the greatest show on earth, like they say, you know.
Definitely. So tell me a little bit about what the fire marshals were actually doing.
So the fire marshal comes in. Now the club owners are frantic because they still operated a nightclub there. You know, we were using it on a Sunday. They had to open up the next Thursday for a college night. Fire marshal comes in, and like the big shot wears a white, you know, the captain comes in, and they're just like couldn't believe it. But they were so intrigued by the haircuts. Like one guy did Bob Marley in the back of someone's head, and they were so intrigued by the haircut. So I went over there, you know, smooth talking barber, and I was like, listen, man, we have people that flew in from all over the world. Can we stay open tonight? But if 2 people leave, we'll let 2 more people in. 2 people leave, we'll let 2 more people in. So we had to run that so people wouldn't get as mad at me and want refunds, because like we packed the house in, and we actually opened a little side room just to kind of like let out some of the flow from the main room. But the nightclub owner came up to me at the end of the night, and we closed the registers and we talked about the numbers, and they did phenomenal between food and beverage. And they said, we love you, but you can't come back. Like, you outgrew this place. Congratulations. So I was on to the next venue.
Okay, so fast forward into 2017, the show that I came to, that show you was talking about, then you had, what, 2,000 people? The last show you was talking about with the fire marshal there.
We did 1,100. Then I did 3 more shows after that.
Okay, and how many people were at your show 2017?
2017, we did a total of a little over 5,800 attendees, not including vendors. So it's hard to count the vendors because they come in through another door, but we try counting the wristbands. But we think we were close to the 8,000 point in all barber-related brands, which was good.
And tell me what was different from 2017 to the previous years, because I saw 2 massive barber battling stages. I must have seen in the region of 200 vendors or something like that. I mean, for a barber event, like I said, it was off the scale. The magnitude was, you know, crazy. Walk me through 2017, what was in your head and what actually took place.
Okay, so we're sitting right here at Premier Orlando Hair Show, one of my favorite shows. They do a great job here. The cosmetologists in the U.S. have multiple shows to choose from, whether it's Premier Orlando, IBS New York, IBS Las Vegas, the Bronner Brothers Hair Show. Everything's catered to women's hair. We get it. That's where the money is, right? I mean, these ladies' products, these color lines, they're making millions of dollars on an annual basis for these women lines. But we always get stuck in this little corner. You know, they put the barbers in the corner by the bathrooms, put them by the concessions. We get our own little spot, and if you notice, every year our spot's getting a little bit bigger, and we're starting to spread out at these hair shows. And at the men's grooming lines, whether it's a Clubman or Babyless Pro or whoever, the clipper company, whatever it is, the lines, the attraction's getting bigger and bigger. These cosmetologists want to learn what we're doing. And in return, we want to learn what they're doing, because men are getting color enhancements nowadays. Men are coloring grays out. They're getting funky colors on top. You know, we have to stay up to date with the trends too. What I see happening in 2017 is a lot of growth in me as an individual to want more for what has saved my life. Barbering has truly saved my life. Wanting more for the industry. I mean, if you look at it in Connecticut and in the U.S. alone, barbershop I used to go to in 1994 is still charging the same price for haircuts. But let me tell you something, bread and milk is not the same price. Gas is not the same price. oil change is not the same price. So, everything has been increasing, but we're still getting the same fees.
Okay, so the whole thing was education on how to increase the prices.
Point blank, how to increase the prices, how to increase the services, how to upsell, how to upgrade. We were doing, it just basically, it sparked a hunger within the barber, especially in my area. The growth in barbers in the barbershops that opened since my expo, the people that started off on stages, on my stage, that started off, no one knew them. Now they got 100,000 followers on Instagram. These are people that they were hungry little guys. They couldn't even afford $100 to get on. The shop owner had to pay for them to get on the competition. Now they're getting booked all over the country. So the barber thing has exploded. Do I like the Instagram barber? Yeah, I mean, that's cool. You got a big following. Yeah, that's great. But how's your paycheck? Like if your numbers on social media aren't matching the way you take care of your family or the type of lifestyle you're living, then what are you doing it all for?
Right, yeah. False notoriety. Or as Danny Amarim would say, balling backwards. You got the Instagram numbers, but it's not reflective on your bank account. Okay, so the main thing that the Barber Expo is about is the barber battle, but this year you had a massive educational room as well with some of the big names in education, Popular Nobody, you had Score 'em Over, you had Stay Gold. Tell me a little bit about why you had such a big educational presence there.
Well, like I said before, my excuse to educate barbers is to give them a battle, is to give them the competition, is to give them the vendors, give them the music, give them everything, because men are different. The ladies, they'll drive. They'll pay hundreds of dollars to learn new techniques. Me as a man, you got to fluff me a little bit. You got to entice me. I want the whole shebang. If I'm not, like me, I am hungry for education, and I still believe I can learn something new every day. I'm no bigger than anybody else. I can learn something from the guy that has 3 clients and 200 followers, But I believe that the education is really important in order to keep what we have going. Because at the end of the day, there's so many barber battles on every corner nowadays. Because I believe I'm a big factor for that, because they're saying, well, how does this show in Connecticut do so well? Like, how come people are going to, Connecticut's known for Yukon Huskies and a tragedy, Sandy Hook. So a lot of people don't want to go to Connecticut, but I'm getting thousands of people to fly to Connecticut every year. So the education's a draw. Anything I can use to draw people to this event and to spread awareness and say, hey, like, we're here. And everyone's telling me to move it out of Connecticut. I was born in Hartford, Connecticut. That's my hometown. If I could help the economy there, if I could help the community there, and if I could help inspire others like I have been, then I'm going to keep it home. Maybe I'll do another one elsewhere. I'm in negotiations with Iced Out Barber Jackie in Vegas right now. And yeah, so we're in negotiations, but I don't want to leave my baby. I want to keep cultivating it, and I need everyone's help. I was honored to have you and a lot of people from the UK this year. Like this, just to have one person fly from England to my show was like, okay, this guy flew to Connecticut. So it was good. It was very good.
Yeah, I was laughing throughout your whole answer because you're saying Connecticut, but then you've got to think how Vegas started. Vegas was just a dead-end desert with nothing there, and they brought the casinos and the people came and found it, and it's the same thing for the expo. So closing out, I just want to close this interview now. Tell me a little bit about Major League Academy, what someone could expect with zero barbering acumen and someone who has a little bit experience. What can they expect if they come to your academy?
Okay, so Major League Barber Academy, which started off as Major League Institute of Hair Design because it had to be a cosmetology school, like I told you before. But about 4 years ago, my ex-instructor and a good friend of mine helped with State Senator Eric Coleman sign petitions to separate barbering from cosmetology. So now barbers in the state of Connecticut do 1,000 hours, and cosmetologists do 1,500 hours. With the 1,000-hour curriculum, it's keeping the dropout rate for men. It's getting a lot lower, and men don't have to go there and do the finger sets and the roller sets and the finger waves. Guys were dropping out because they didn't want to do that because their friends are making fun of them. They come home with a mannequin with rollers, you know. So I was fortunate to have a lady like Miss Payne Hill in my life who helped separate the barbering from cosmetology. I opened my school. Basically, I'll be honest, I opened my school in the beginning because it was hard for me to find licensed barbers. So my approach was, I'm finding licensed barbers, but they're coming from a barber shop that was taught poor practices, from an owner that was taught poor practices, from an owner that was taught poor practices, so they don't know how to sanitize right. It's a chop shop. They just want to get you in and out the chair. They're not even using neck strips. So you know that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I said, you know what? I'm going to start training my own dogs. So I opened the academy, and right now I'm actually in the process of getting Title IV financial aid funding. I've gotten over 100 licensed barbers in the state of Connecticut in the past 4.5, 5 years, I would say. And I have a great graduation rate. I have a great passing rate. And now we're going to be offering a class in Spanish as well. So we're going to have a Latin instructor. And, you know, it's been a dream come true for me. Like, if you would have told me I'd be where I'm at in my career today, even talking to you years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. And I probably would have tried finding a new profession because I'm from the streets. And nothing's handed to you, and you don't believe everything you hear or see. But one thing I can say is that, like, I work a lot. You know, I work a lot. My phone's always on. I go to the gym at 5 a.m. and I usually don't go to bed till about midnight. And I work throughout the day.
Now I could see that. I learnt that actually at the Barber Expo because I kind of walked in and you was driving around on your car all day and you did not stop. And then on the day of the show, just forget it. You was like, your complete focus was on, I want to make every single person in this expo happy. I could see it in your eyes and on your face and your demeanor, you know?
That's awesome. And that's truly what it is. People like, wow, man, like this guy's mad at you. And I'm like, oh, like I really care. You know, like if you could show, like I really care about my event, and not everyone's gonna be happy all the time. You know, there's a couple vendors that were selling t-shirts that didn't do well. Well, guess what? There was 80 other people selling t-shirts. Maybe you have to sell something else. At the end of the day, people are going to these expos to buy new tools and equipment to help them in the workforce. They can buy a t-shirt anywhere. So don't get mad at me because you're selling the same t-shirt for the past 5 years at my show. You might have got lucky the first 4 years, but barbers are starting to step their game up a little bit. They might want to buy a new razor or a new gel or a new pomade. So,
okay,
time to level up.
And in closing, because this question that I'm going to ask you now, I think could hit someone who's doing really bad things in their life because your life wasn't so good and you spun it around. What would you say to that young person that's on the wrong road? How would you say that barbering could change their life?
Well, so here's the problem with the mindset with a lot of barbers is it's really easy to be on the wrong road and still be a barber. Because if you're in the inner city, you still have that element coming in for haircuts. There's a lot of bartering, stolen goods coming in the shop. Hey, I got an iPhone for sale. I have this for sale. At the end of the day, you have to learn that there's two paths. There's no in between. And if you're walking that straight path and you're doing the next right thing and you're plugging away and you're working hard, hard work recognizes hard work. You're gonna do well in any career choice. But if you keep veering off that path, all it takes is that one time to get knocked down, whether it's an incarceration or even a bullet. You know, there's nothing promised in that other lifestyle. But in this lifestyle of perseverance, doing the next right thing, practicing spiritual principles in your life, you can make it in any career. But as a barber, it's really hard for them to distinguish the both because that element's still around and it's a cash business and it's fast money and it's easy money, but are you saving for your future? You know, so my advice to you is once you start treating the barber industry, your career, as a career and a profession rather than a hustle and a way to make cash, then you will take your career to that next plateau. You know, when you think of a professional, and I ask people this all the time, when you think of a professional, what kind of job do you think of? They say, well, a doctor, a lawyer. I said, well, what does a doctor and a lawyer do? Benefits, insurance, medical insurance, health insurance, life insurance, and they work to put their kids through college, hopefully to do what they do. Well, what's the difference between a barber? If you're a professional barber, you're not supposed to make enough money to buy Jordans and go pop bottles in a club every weekend. You're supposed to save up for a rainy day. You know, invest in yourself, 401ks, buy your own home. If you open a barbershop, buy your own property. You know, become an entrepreneur. And that's the problem. We have the ability, we have all these resources that sit in our chair that guys want to talk about what they did last night or what girl they're messing with, rather than, hey, how can you take me to that next level? So, I mean, barbers don't realize the power they have. We're one of the last professions that still touch people, you know, like a doctor or a dentist, like a chiropractor. Like, we still allowed to touch people. You're not allowed to touch people. Police are wearing body cameras nowadays. You know, it's a non-intimate world in 2017. We have intimate relationships with our clients, not in a sexual way, in an intimate way. We put a razor to their neck and they trust us. So what else can you gain from them being in your network?
Thank you very much for that, Jay. So there you go, guys. If you're on the wrong road, Jay has given you words of advice. This is not words of advice from a priest. This is words of advice from a guy that's been incarcerated. His life was going nowhere and he's turned it around. So listen to those words and take heed. Jay, thank you very much. Carry on doing what you're doing. I cannot wait to see where you are in 3 years with your work ethic and your focus and your drive.
Thank you.
So I wish you very well.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.